Hello there guys, what is going on? Daniel Childs back here again for another show. It is Saturday, the 1st of July. Incredible it's already July, but I guess you could say we're fully into pre-season now or getting close into it because the Mauricio Pochettino era now has officially begun. His contract begins today. I think it's the same for Christopher Nkunku, who of course was announced as Chelsea's new signing recently. Going to get into Pochettino pre-season plans today. An interesting piece by Matt Law in the Telegraph referring to some of the methods in terms of training and fitness, which is obviously going to be a big focus for Chelsea and for Pochettino this summer. We will speak about Nicolas Jackson, who was formally announced as Chelsea's new striker last night. Levi Colwell, apparently big talks ahead for him with Pochettino, really getting that sense that he is in the plans for Chelsea because of course Brighton have very strong interest in signing Levi Colwell permanently. Then we'll wrap up the show. Cesar Azpilicueta likely to go to Atletico Madrid, and Loftus-Cheek. We did cover Loftus-Cheek the other day, but he gave a really lovely farewell letter to Chelsea fans that I think is worth giving some respect to and admiration on this show. Before we get into any of that good stuff, if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. Latest Chelsea stuff. We're covering all the stuff over the summer. I have got an announcement that it's not fully related to Chelsea, and it's why maybe the way content looks over the next month, probably a little bit more than that actually, is going to look a little bit different. But I do want to keep, and also time zones maybe a little bit different of when I'm uploading. So we'll get into that in soon, I guess, and maybe there'll be some ways to sort of get some content onto the channel, but I won't announce that right now. But you know, it's quite a big thing, so I wanted to let you guys know ahead of time in terms of content and uploading and stuff, and whether there's going to be a disruption to my content plans because it's quite big. But let's get into the Nicolas Jackson thing. As a content creator, you have to be prepared at this time of the year that announcements can drop at very inconvenient times. And unfortunately, even though I knew that Nicolas Jackson was done and it was basically just awaiting the announcement, didn't know when it was going to drop. It may have dropped earlier in the week. I thought that with Ruben being announced as another departure, they may wait. But then I watched the new Indiana Jones film. I turn off my phone when I'm in the cinema. And by the time I came out, I obviously saw all the media. Got back here quite late, so I didn't have time yesterday to do a show. But we are going to focus firstly on Nicolas Jackson being signed from Villarreal. Fee around 30 million, an 8-year contract. This is what the statement on Chelsea's website said last night. The Senegal international has signed an 8-year contract following a breakout 22-23 campaign in La Liga where he scored 12 goals. Co-sporting directors Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley said, "We are excited to welcome Nicolas to Chelsea. He is a young player with big potential as he showcased from Villarreal last season. We believe he is ready for this next step in his career and look forward to him working with our new head coach, Mauricio Pochettino, and his Chelsea teammates." A little bit more context and background for what Jackson has done so far in his career. Born in the Gambia, Jackson spent much of his childhood in Senegal and represents the country at international level. The 22-year-old's club career began at Senegal Premier League side Casa Sports before a move to Villarreal in September of 2019. Jackson's first taste of senior European football came on loan at Spanish second-tier side Mirandas. A campaign in Villarreal's B side followed, and he helped his side seal promotion from the third tier with both goals in their playoff final victory. The young forward established himself in the senior setup last summer and went on to make 38 appearances across all competitions for Villarreal and earn a call-up for the Senegal World Cup squad. He made his international debut at the tournament in Qatar. He ended the campaign as La Liga's informed player, scoring 9 goals in the final 8 matches of the season and winning the Player of the Month award for May. I knew there was going to be a Jackson tie-in of some kind, but the Sorry Miss Jackson playing over the announcement video was pretty good. I think it was very well done by the Chelsea media team, and seems very happy to be joining Chelsea. Just to go through some of his quotes here, because he spoke about kind of previous Chelsea players. I mean, this is something that a lot of players are asked about, and you know, it's nice PR to say, I know Chelsea players, I like Chelsea players of the past. And I remember Timo Werner, funny enough, who I think was very sincere, remember him referring to Didier Drogba and the Munich win in 2012, and this is what Nicolas Jackson has to say. He said, "This is the first time I've been to Stamford Bridge. It's perfect. Great start for Nicolas Jackson. It's very big and the fans are near the pitch. The Villarreal stadium is like that, so I'm used to the fans being right up close to the pitch, and I like that a lot. I wanted to join a big team, and Chelsea is one of the best teams in the world. Plus, I've watched them since I was young. I watched Demba Ba, Didier Drogba, Nicolas Anelka was good too. Big players. So I always dreamed of playing for a team like this. I remember the Champions League final in 2012, and especially when Drogba scored that header right at the end. I watched those players for Chelsea when I was growing up, so I decided to follow in their footsteps. Hopefully, that's what continues to happen now I'm here. I wasn't amazed or surprised at how well my season went. I wanted to do more. I didn't do enough for me because I had my goals to reach, but I didn't achieve those goals I wanted. It was very good, but I wanted more. I always want to make the most of what I've been given. I always want to do better. So very humble, very motivated. You know, this is a guy who has kind of shot up very, very quickly and is someone that is a bit of a punt for Chelsea in terms of not having tons of evidence of someone who's played a lot of years at a high level, but you look at some of the numbers, and we'll go into it here because Opta Analyst did a piece around Nicolas Jackson. With 10 goals in his final 11 league appearances of the season, Jackson was one of the informed forwards across Europe from April onwards. In fact, since the 1st of April, no player in the top 5 European leagues scored more non-penalty goals than Jackson. Across that period, he scored with an incredible 40% of his shots and averaged a goal every 80 minutes in the Liga. Those 10 goals were one more than Chelsea scored in the Premier League as a team over the same period and across the same number of games. I mean, I don't think that's a great achievement given what Chelsea were like last season. This graph here speaks about Nicolas Jackson threat with non-penalty XG and X-assist combined per 90 in La Liga. Puts him very well. I mean, not at the same level as, say, Karim Benzema, Rafinha, Lewandowski, but of course those play for much better teams than Villarreal, but it's still quite impressive given this is a young player still developing. Goes on to say here, an attribute of Jackson's game that Chelsea fans will be excited to see is his ability to travel with the ball at his feet. While there are various attacking players across Europe that possess this trait, not many have the end product of Jackson. The forward had 10 goal involvements across the Liga in 22-23 following a ball carry, with 7 goals and 3 assists. This tally was below only Real Madrid superstar Vinicius Jr. in the Spanish top flight, but Jackson managed his tally in over 1,000 fewer minutes on the pitch than the Brazilian. All round good, and I think stylistically this is the thing that most excites me about Jackson is with a coach who we believe is wanting to play a transitional game. I think it suits the player, and that is something that we haven't had at Chelsea, or just a frustration. I've said this before, that the player and the style of play that we want to implement just doesn't match up. The player might have done very good things in the past, but you bring him into a very different environment and then play a very different style of football on top of that and ask him to do things that he's never done before. The awkwardness is kind of there, and I'd like to think that with what Jackson has as a wide player coming in, but then also someone who can stretch defences, is proving very quickly to be quite clinical in front of goal, very confident coming into Chelsea, that he can grow and develop. And I think the relationship and the competition between him and Armando Broja, I think is going to be very exciting. Dacha Fofana, sure, could stay as well. I mean, all three of them could stay, and you have a trio of young players competing for the first choice attacking spot. If we're playing a 4-2-3-1, we're not playing a two-striker system. Poch may surprise us and play a two-striker system. But I think with Nkunku as well, you've got someone hopefully there who could really work off Jackson. I could imagine Jackson being someone who is forced to do a lot of work, but also stretch defences. And then in a perfect world, you see that space open up for, say, Nkunku to run into and finish chances, or, you know, vice versa. You know, Nkunku's maybe creating chances for a player like Jackson. So I think in terms of that, it makes a lot of sense. And I know CFC Central was on London is Blue Pod, and just he does a lot of great threads. I'm sure a lot of you guys follow him, but if you want sort of tactical deep dives, data deep dives, CFC Central is probably one of the best accounts out there at the moment in terms of really going deep on a player and speaking about the pros, but also the cons and the potential concerns. So, you know, this is still a raw player, someone who in the air, this is one of the things that people have spoken about. He's not the best. That is a part of his game that he's definitely going to need to improve, because the Premier League is more physical. It absolutely is. And it's not something that you can just sort of swat away. And, you know, I think Broja, it definitely probably has a head start on Jackson. You know, calculated risk in a sense. You know, you're buying someone who, you know, doesn't have a lot of evidence, but also could turn out to be a very valuable signing that exceeds expectations. I don't think many of our expectations, I'd like to think, is not for him to come in and be the saviour. I'm not expecting that from Nicolas Jackson. So my sort of expectation level for him is not like low, like 5 goals or anything. I'd like to think he can hit double figures, but I think for a player that's probably better than buying someone who in recent years like a Lukaku, who we think, yeah, this is the ready-made guy, he's going to come in and change things instantly. I don't think he's going to have that pressure, and I think he's going to have competition, and I think that's a good thing for a young player. We'll speak about another young player here. Levi Colwell is apparently set for Pochettino talks before deciding his Chelsea future. This is from The Athletic. Chelsea have insisted the player is not for sale. However, his current contract expires in 2025. The club, as they showed with Kai Havertz's 65 million transfer to Arsenal this week, will consider selling players if their deals have 2 years or less to run and do not sign an extension. Colwell was last offered a new contract in February, but it has not and will not be accepted because the terms are not considered good enough. There has been no fresh proposal since then. More negotiations are expected to take place, but Colwell will want to meet with Pochettino first to see how much he figures into his plans before considering another extension offer from Chelsea if one is made. There are worrying shades of the Mason Mount situation here. Of course, different player, different situation. We don't want to go down the mountain road again. We've spoken a lot about that in recent days, but I think it's smart for the player to kind of consider his options and to kind of get assurances, because I think the club's actions of not selling him kind of say very strongly that they're not going to sell him, and they put a lot of work in and they appreciate his value. But then if you're Levi, you're looking at, say, a Trevor Chalobah who, I think has been a very good player for Chelsea, but still is maybe on the verge of leaving or is thinking about leaving, has offers elsewhere. And then you've got this club in Brighton who are willing to invest the most amount of money they're probably ever going to spend on a player, have spent so far on you. It's understandable why in an environment that you've just succeeded in, you may look at that and go, actually, that's the place for me. And also arguably and kind of provably after last year, a more stable environment too. And he will absolutely go into the starting 11 there under Roberto De Zerbi. So it's about Pochettino hopefully convincing him. I think from Chelsea, it's important after Mount leaving that you withhold the academy graduates we have, because I think it'd be even more painful if you see kind of a Cobham exodus again. I'd like to think that Reece James, Trevor Chalobah, Levi Colwell, Conor Gallagher, Amanda Broya all stay, because I think Pochettino has stressed this, and he stressed this a lot when he was at Spurs. There's a great quote around, he understands the value in academy talent within the first team for supporters. Like, having that connection with someone is important. And it's not only about the sentimental thing. The quality of Levi Colwell is undeniable at this point. So I'd like to think that there is enough there. And I'd also think that the sale of Kalidou Koulibaly says enough to Levi Colwell that, there will be a chance for you to compete here and really make the position your own on the left side of defence. The final two things to just wrap up here. Ruben, of course, announced as an AC Milan player, and he gave this really lovely farewell message, because, this is a guy who's been at Chelsea since the age of 8. So he's someone that has grown not only as a player, but as a person too. And this is what he had to say. I don't even know where to begin with this. I've been at Chelsea since the age of 8, and to come through the ranks and play senior football at this club, there's just no better feeling. I've truly gone from being a boy to a man at this club over the last 19 years, and it's hard to say goodbye to so many people that have helped guide and shape me as the person and player I am today. It's always been my dream to play for Chelsea, so being able to win the FA Youth Cup and UEFA Youth Cup during my days in the academy, to then making my first team debut and winning the Premier League and Europa League during my senior career, is something that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I would like to thank everyone associated with Chelsea Football Club who have helped me during my career, to the coaches that I have worked with, the backroom staff and my teammates, to the people I've seen day to day at the training ground over the last 19 years. Thank you all. To the fans, you've supported me and had my back from day one. No words will ever be enough to tell you how much that has meant to my family and I. I wish nothing but the best to everyone here and hope to see the club get back on the right path and winning silverware as soon as possible. It's time for me to begin a new adventure in football, to live in a new country and experience a new culture. But I really do hope our paths cross again in the future. Thank you for everything. Really emotional message, and as someone who has been a fan of Ruben, this is what, as a fan, you really connect with. We were just speaking about this in terms of academy graduates and speaking about people who have those deep connections to you as a fan, and it isn't always about the players that, the most glamorous or the ones that, do incredible things. Those players are important, but I think for Ruben, the story of Ruben, we spoke about it extensively the other day. Please go and watch Thursday, I think Wednesday or Thursday show. I sort of deep dived into Loftus-Cheek and my feelings on his Chelsea story and all of that, but just a really lovely farewell message, and shows how much he cared about being at Chelsea and how much I think he wanted it to work at Chelsea. So I really wish him the best at AC Milan. We'll be watching his time there along with Fikayo Tomori and Olivier Giroud. And maybe if Chelsea return to Europe, there will be a chance for Ruben to return. And I'm sure he'd get a very good ovation one day like that in the future. Final thing is just Azpilicueta. It seemed like the mutual termination of his contract was going to happen and he was going to go to Inter Milan. I don't know if it's something to do with the financial situation of Inter Milan, but instead looks like he's going to go back to Spain, of course his nation, and play for Atletico Madrid, which feels like a very natural fit for him, playing a more defensive style of football. At his age, I think it makes sense. And I know that Chelsea will likely be doing something very special for Azpilicueta, which is not a surprise. This is a guy who is maybe the last of a dying breed in football. To have a player at your club for nearly 11 years, over a decade, is astonishing. I know a lot of people have been talking about in recent days how quickly the squad that won the Champions League, that 11 that won the Champions League in Porto, has been disbanded. That kind of shows you how keeping players for that long is just unrealistic now. Like, it just does not happen. It's a lot less like that. And I think the story of Azpilicueta is one that is really remarkable. So we'll do that when it's officially confirmed, because I would want to include some of the stuff that Chelsea are going to do with him as well, because I think you've really got to appreciate a player whose longevity is just outstanding, just ridiculous, and the amount of errors he has lived through at Chelsea is also quite remarkable too. So we'll do that, but it seems like Dave is very much close, or it's basically done at this point, will be an Atletico Madrid player. That is it for today's longer news show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Monday is probably when I'll be doing my next show. And hopefully on Monday, we will have our first kind of images of Mauricio Pochettino at Cobham. Maybe an interview or two. I'd like to think they're going to do a press conference before they fly out to the US in a couple of weeks' time, because that would be exciting to cover. So all that good stuff will be coming up on the channel. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.